Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and my guest today is going to be someone who is keen not just on learning, but is also keen on improving the quality of life for people, addressing issues, and coming from the law background, being a law professor and an author, as well as, if I say, someone who passionately serves to address the issue of homelessness and is also keen on learning how artificial intelligence can make a real difference. So let me have the pleasure of welcoming Sateesh Nori ji to this conversation. Namaste.
Hello, nice to be with you.
So I want to begin by congratulating you. One, you love your subject and your focus is consistent even while you address a TED talk. Talk to me about your experience of sharing the application of AI chatbot to address homelessness through this TED talk. Why was it so important for you?
Well, one thing about the law is people like to make it very complicated, and lawyers, particularly, try to make the law seem impossible for the average person to understand. But really, the law is just basic rules, the rules of a game of chess, or the rules in a card game, or the traffic rules, or the criminal rules, or the immigration rules. These are all just a set of rules. And some people learn the rules and they study the rules and they practice using the rules. And everybody else has their own other day job to do. So when they enter this area, they become nervous, they become anxious. They don't know the rules, they don't know how the game is played. And the lawyer is makes a profit on making sure that these rules are inaccessible to the average person. And in our country and in many other countries, there's been histories, hundreds of years of lawyers making the law more complicated, not less complicated, because lawyers like to be needed and paid, and lawyers do very well in many cases. So a few years ago, we started to see this thing called artificial intelligence. And what artificial intelligence is it's a way for computers to think like people, to understand rules, to understand logic, to predict what the next word in a sentence might be. And as these computers got stronger and stronger, they were able to replace the analysis of these types of rules. And in the situation in which the average person can't afford a lawyer, these types of technologies can be very helpful in helping you fill out a form or helping you speak to a judge or helping you send a letter. They can help you get 50%, 75% of the way to the solution and leave the lawyer for the last 25%. That's the way it should be. That's more efficient. So I became very, very interested in this new phenomenon.
Actually, there are a couple of points. One, the way you said these are the rules, like a game of chess, etc. So when you are towards this end of the fence and you describe the way you did, it makes sense also. But when you are an ignorant person and caught up in some web of certain kind, you're so much stressed out, and it is very difficult to think the way you would with the help of an attorney. And that's why you go to experts, etc. And now, even while we talk about using artificial intelligence, people will have lack of confidence until unless they have some proven track to which somebody has used and have explained. So on that front, first, in your fraternity, I think you have worked towards making other attorneys aware that this artificial intelligence may be applied in such and such fashion. Talk to me about receptivity of people who are already professionals.
Yes, many people in my profession are very scared and they don't believe that this technology will replace them. And they're also very nervous about their income, the professional service that they provide. And there are many, many lawyers. There's more than 1 million lawyers in the United States, according to the American Bar Association. And it's a big business to be a lawyer. So it's very easy for a lawyer to say, this doesn't work, don't trust it, it will make a mistake. And there is some truth to that. In the beginning stages, this type of technology called artificial intelligence has made mistakes, has misled people, has exhibited bias towards men over women or white people against black people. It's made very significant mistakes. But the way that I encourage people to use it is to say, this is a tool. It's not a person. It's something that we who are experts should be able to use to deliver better results, to be more effective, to be more efficient, and to be less expensive for people who need this kind of help. And one example that I heard recently is in New York, we go to JFK Airport to, take a flight, let's say to go to India. And many people take the subway and they get on the air train and they take the air train to the terminal and they get on their plane. Well, did you ever look for the driver of the air train? There is no driver. It's AI. And you trust that that train will get you from the subway station to the terminal, even though there's no driver. Why do we trust it? Well, number one, it's been trained to go on that route. And it's been trained to open the doors when it's in the station and close the doors as it leaves the station and to play the announcement. But also, it's on tracks. So it can't leave the tracks and go in any direction that it wants. It can only go from point A to point B in a circle. So that's the way we should think about AI is for now, we put it on tracks. We give it very specific instructions and it can be very safe. Hundreds of thousands of people take the air train and they have no fear that it will crash or take them to the wrong airport. And similarly, we should use these types of technologies as tools to get people from A to B, but to put it on tracks so that it doesn't take people in the wrong direction and can be very, very effective. It's cheaper. It can run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's a very useful way to achieve a very simple purpose, take people from point A to point B. And so that's the example that I give.
Moreover, going from point A to point B with you, and in this case, referring to point A as the TED talk and the story that you narrated in the talk. And I must compliment you that you are a very good storyteller. And I believe anyone, whether he's a good politician or an attorney or whosoever it is, even doctors, the way you kind of bring out the human side of what you are doing, who you are serving, it helps. I've heard some doctors talk about their patients and they take into account their whole coordinates. And the way you described in your TED talk, uh, talk to me how uh, important it is for you to understand not just the legal side but the human side of call it your client or the people that you are serving. Most of the time I'm kind of putting another layer with clients is because it is not a clinical relationship. It is more driven out of compassion, the way you have served pro bono. So talk to me about that
Yeah,
side.
yeah, that's a very interesting way to describe what I do. I didn't become a lawyer in order to be with other lawyers. I don't like other lawyers. They're not very friendly. They can be very competitive. They can be very particular and judgmental. I became a lawyer to be a problem solver. And so my purpose is to help people who are not lawyers, not to work with more lawyers. And in that way, I think to make something very simple is the purpose of a lawyer, to make a law very simple, to allow a family member to immigrate, to allow two people to get married, to allow someone to be able to get paid the proper wage at their job, to be able to stay in their apartment and have everything, the heat work in the winter. So the lawyer's job is to demystify the law to me. Not all lawyers think that way. Many lawyers think the lawyer's job is to make
More
money,
complicated. Yeah. By making it more complicated
by
for
making it more complicated, by delaying it, by adding the cost and expense. And so when AI arose, this became a vehicle for me to do the thing that I always intended to do, which is to demystify, to simplify, to allow the law to reach as many people as possible in a straightforward way. Um, and to, if that means there are fewer lawyers, there may not be a problem for me in that way. Um, or it might mean that the lawyers who exist will do more interesting and more difficult cases. The example I give is in a hospital. When you go to a hospital and you check in at the desk at the emergency room and you say, I broke my finger, the surgeon doesn't come and take down your name and address. They have other people to do that, or now they have a computer, a tablet, you type it in, or a QR code, because that's more efficient. But in a law firm, especially a free law firm like the one I work in, it's literally the lawyer who's doing every last step of that type of interaction. It's not efficient, and it's repetitive, and it causes the lawyer to burn out. It becomes too stressful. And the lawyer in that case is not using their skills. They're not resolving the legal problem. They're doing paperwork. And unfortunately, much of legal work is that way. It's tedious paperwork. It's understanding the rules in a system and taking each step one at a time. And I think that those types of jobs are, they're not the purpose of the law or being a lawyer. And they get in the way, not just for the lawyer to have a fulfilling, interesting job, but also for the person who needs to get from point A to point B. They need their problems solved quickly and cheaply.
absolutely. And in continuation with what you just said, to simplify the law for the common man, I think you came up with this book also, uh,
Yes.
Sheltered 20 Years in Housing Code, Satish ji. And I also remember you have narrated a couple of stories in the book also. Uh, I think perhaps now this is another side. If you love what you do, then there are other faculties in you which you are able to manifest. Like, I don't know whether you are aware that you could be such a good writer as you are, and you should also consider writing some fiction at some point of time, maybe taking some clue from the stories of the people that you have worked with. But talking about this book's response and how it helped you in finding even more clarity with respect to what you are doing.
It's a good question. I'm an immigrant, like perhaps you are an immigrant. And when we come to a new country, I came when I was a child, a baby. Um, and as you grow up, you wonder, what am I doing here? How did I get here? In my case, because my parents brought me. Why am I here? How do I connect my life here to what my life would have been in India or wherever, a person is from? And then when you choose a profession, you wonder, am I supposed to be in this job? Do other people accept me in this job? Do I understand what this job is even? And every so often you have these questions. Maybe it's an anxiety in the middle of the night, or maybe you're looking for a promotion, or maybe you're thinking of changing jobs and you wonder, what am I even doing here in the first place? How did I get here? And so I wrote this book because during the pandemic, we all had more time to think about these questions. Um, we were not traveling, people were getting sick, millions of people were dying. This thing happened so suddenly. It made me question all of these questions. about myself and my purpose. And so I wrote this book, and I started with one story at a time. And the initial stories are about me and my childhood. How did I even become a lawyer? Well, because my grandfather, as he was dying, he said to me, "You should become a lawyer." And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "It's something where you can help people and you can talk to people. You can understand, help people understand and solve problems." And so that's the path I chose. And similar stories, occurred to me over my lifetime. How did I move to New York? How did I take a job at the Legal Aid Society where I worked for many years? Um, why did I choose housing? And why did I choose to become a free lawyer instead of becoming someone who can make a lot more money? All of these questions, I revisit them, but to write them down and to think of those moments, what were those key moments that made me turn left instead of right? And to really analyze those moments while they're in my mind, fresh or recently, was very helpful to me. And so I didn't think anybody would read this book. It's still not a bestseller, of course, but it was very helpful to me. And other people who are in my field have said that it's very helpful to them as well in understanding this type of path, this type of career, and the relevance of it in a place like New York City, which is such a big place. Everyone can feel lost here, no matter how powerful, how rich, how successful they are. We're all just one out of 8 million, 10 million people. And many of us are immigrants. And so, what does it mean? So, this is my attempt at trying to answer that question for myself.
Very good. When I say very good, I think it helps, and those who read, they resonate with the way you have expressed and shared the wisdom also, along with information. Talking about wisdom, and I have come across many attorneys. If you pay attention to some of the well-known politicians, some who became president, including President Obama. So this this is like a normal trajectory, and it reminds me of earlier you were saying that there are certain rules of the game. So in order to formulate the policies and rules, probably politics is the way, if you are in a position to sort of make certain tweaks here and there which you feel would be helpful. Uh, how do you see the interrelationship between the legal fraternity and the kind of communication which they need to have through various organizations with the uh, political body that ultimately is bringing up that structure which is going to create the quality of life that we all have?
Yes, yes. So, I think originally, no government is built with the purpose of having professional people run the government, especially a democracy like India or the United States. The purpose of a democracy is the law belongs to everybody. Everyone should be able to understand and make the maximum of their skills and efforts. Um, Unfortunately, we've developed this professional class of people, and often they're lawyers who say, no, no, we only are the ones who can understand what's happening. And in fact, most of the presidents who've been president in the United States have been lawyers. And the same is true in the United Kingdom for prime ministers. The same has been true in India, in many other countries. It's the lawyers who say we are the ones who own and understand and can wield these rules. And I think that's really problematic. And as a society matures, there's just more and more laws. They never take away laws, they are just continuously adding more. And it becomes more and more complicated to navigate. So there is a strong connection between people who can talk, can write, can understand these laws, these rules, and power, because you can communicate things to people and they believe you, especially if you're convincing in some way, if you're charismatic in some way. And that's really dangerous. That can lead to, a strong man or an authoritarian, like a king or a queen over time. We don't want that. And so, bringing this back to the technology like AI, um, you can understand it if you ask AI to say, please explain the immigration law regarding my spouse, and here are the facts. Please explain the law to me. And you can get an understanding of it. And you can say, explain it to me in Hindi, explain it to me in Gujarati, explain it to me in Spanish. And it can do it. And so this presents an opportunity for us to not rely on these people who are um, the middlemen, the people who
So
help us.
forgive me to interrupt you. And I was just thinking, middleman is needed many times, even in the case that we are talking about. For some common person to understand the way he can apply artificial intelligence to sort of address the issue that is facing related to, call it, homelessness, or he was wrongly evicted by his landlord or whatever, and then he'll say how AI would have anything to do with my condition. So there is a space of a middleman. If I refer to Satish Nori as that person who acts as a bridge uh, between even the professional counterparts as well as those who may kind of see that the chatbot may have some potential additional way to empower him in overcoming the pending issue.
Yeah, I mean, that is a strong argument. Let me give you two examples, counter examples. Number one, many people in America, come April 15th, they have to file their taxes. Millions of people use TurboTax or
Yes.
some free software. They trust that this software will help them complete their forms, give them tax advice, check for mistakes, and even file the form, the tax return itself, with no human being involved at any step. Why do they do that? Because they've trusted that this process is verifiable, that it has worked many, many times for many millions of people, and that it's constantly being updated and corrected. So, similarly, many types of processes can be automated in that way. Here's another example. When you go from, let's say you have to drive from New Jersey to New York, many people open up Waze, an app on their phone, and they say, Waze, this is where I am. This is where I need to go. Tell me the fastest way. Tell me which time to go. Tell me how do I avoid tolls. And I need to make these stops too.
Hmm.
Please give me the best route. That's a form of artificial intelligence because Waze is using the data from other drivers. It's built on top of Google Maps and it understands some basic parameters that you've set it and you trust it, right? Why do you trust it? Because it's worked hundreds of times and it's verifiable and it's updated and there's no human being at all. And you trust your family. Your entire family could be in your car with you and you trust this thing that you don't know who it is and who runs it, and it takes you from this place to that place in the best possible way. So these are all examples of things that we already do. So why do we need a middleman? Maybe we don't. And the examples like this will just grow into more and more categories. And maybe you and I won't accept it. For example, a driverless car. Maybe you or I would never sit in a car that doesn't have a driver and allow it to take us from here to there. And these cars exist in California and Texas and other places already. But our kids, our grandkids, they will have no problem because for them, it'll be just like the air train that takes us to JFK Airport. And there are many people who don't take the air train because they don't trust it, because there's no driver there. So I think these things will change. And the question of the middleman, I think, will be less and less
Exactly.
important.
So I think you made a case, and of course you are an attorney. The way you made it, that actually serves the purpose of our conversation. That people feel more confident about making use of artificial intelligence in several fields, not just in the legal field and addressing the issue of homelessness. Uh, would also be one side of it. But as we move toward the concluding part, I want to sort of compliment you, though it's slightly old comparatively, but there was this New York journal uh, which named you as rising star, and I think they were not wrong because you're rising continuously through what you are doing, and you have also served as commissioner of the 2019 Charter Revision Commission. So that is also something which we feel proud of. And you were invited to talk at the by New York State Bar Association, and you mentioned in your LinkedIn profile that in 2002 you were a brand new attorney, and you would not have imagined that you would reach this space where people are attentively listening to you. So, very briefly, how was this experience?
It's a great experience. I think what I believe is to always be curious. There's never a time when it's too late to try to learn something new, and something like AI or something, whatever field you're in, to embrace something new and to embrace it wholeheartedly and with curiosity, and it can open new doors for you. So, 2 or 3 years ago, I thought I'd reached the end point, the final stage of my career. Nothing new could happen to me. Everything that I'd experienced led me to that point, and that's the end. That's it. And then I wrote the book, and the pandemic happened, and and then AI happened, and I embraced it, and I became very curious about it. And now I cannot tell you what will happen in the next 3 to 5 years. That's the place I'm in terms of my own professional development. So I think that's a good thing. Um,
Absolutely.
and so I'm very happy about that. Uh, but it's mainly because I was curious, always curious, um, learning more than I'm teaching. I'm always learning more. And so that's been really a blessing for me.
It's a blessing to be talking to you, and I think it applies to each one of us. Learning and living with not just law, but living with love of learning. I think that helps us in appreciating life beyond limits that we many times impose on ourselves. With lots and lots of good wishes. Thank you for being who you are and playing the role that you are playing as a teacher, as well as what should I say, a compassionately active attorney in New York, and making New York City more livable in your own way. So, thanks and lots of wishes for Satish ji, and thanks to all of you for being a part of this conversation. This is
Thank you
Ashok
very much.
Vyas. Namaste.